This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm joined by our old friend, vigneron, Mr. Ken Forrester, who normally joins us from Stellenbosch, but today is joining us from Connecticut in the States. How are you today, Ken?
Jamie, wonderful. Thank you. We're in Roxbury, Connecticut, one of the little kind of beautiful hidden away gems, I think, of America. It's
Yeah.
bushy, treed. It's a beautiful summer's day. We've just been for a walk down along the river, a couple of miles. It's quite special. I mean, trout fishing in the river. Who knows? You know, if we could grow grapes here, yeah, it would be an option. I
Now,
might, I might just consider it.
correct me if I'm wrong. Connecticut is a train ride away from New York City, right?
Sure. It's about an hour and a half commute if you drive it, and train it's similar. So
Right.
yeah, it's eminently commutable. Yeah.
I have a friend who stays down there, which reminds me I must get in touch with him. Anyway, let's get back to business. Today we're going to be tasting this new one for me, the Sparklehorse Cap Classique Chenin Blanc. Tell me a little bit about this. This is available right now for a I think it's 32.99 or thereabouts in the LCBO, which is very reasonable for sparkling. So tell me a little bit about how this one came about.
So Jamie, you know, necessity is the great mother of invention. We have a vineyard right in front of our tasting lounge, a Chenin Blanc vineyard,
Yeah.
planted in 1974, with a wonderful kind of background to it. When we got to the vineyard in 1993, when I purchased the vineyard, this had obviously been in the ground nearly 20 years. And the advice from one of the viticulturists I was talking to was, oh, Chenin Blanc, you should pull that out, mate, and just plant some Sauvignon Blanc and Pinotage. And I was like, I don't think so. I've just got here. How could I dare be so arrogant as to kind of whip out what I knew nothing about? I'm going to take a little while to get to know it and see what we can do with it. That followed a trip to Australia. In Australia, I spoke to a lot of people, and one of the notable people I spoke to was Peter Barry from Jim Barry.
Oh, yes.
And Peter down in Clare Valley was making some wonderful Riesling and Syrah. And so I thought, great, this is an idea. And I saw some peculiar shaped vines, and I said to him, what happened there? Did you graft those vines? He said, no, we cut them off. We call it giving the vine another leg. And I was like, really? What do you mean? He said, well, you take the vine about 1 foot up the stump, and you cut it off at 45 degrees.
Yes, yes, yes.
So the wound can weep. So you don't collect any moisture in the wound. You want it to weep freely. And the vine will shoot again. And you'll take 2 shoots from that up to where you want your cordon wire to be. By the time you get 2 shoots up to the cordon wire, you choose which one you want to keep and drop the other one, which was just a reserve. And you then top that and spread it onto the cordon and create an entirely new architecture of vineyard structure on a cordon with old roots. I mean, it's a frightening thought. Jamie, can you imagine us being given 20-year-old bodies with what we know today?
Yes.
I mean, you know, that would be a frightening thing, I think, anyway. So, yeah, so literally giving the vine another leg is cutting it off, and no grafting, but literally quite severely damaging the vine.
Yes,
but
yeah.
it is such a willing grower, it'll send out a number of shoots. You retain 2 strong shoots, 1 in reserve. And this is how we rejuvenated this vineyard and put it up onto a wire. It was a bush vine vineyard, put it up onto a cordon, onto a trellis system. And then much later, 10, 15 years later, we noticed the middle 15, 16 rows of the vineyard were always lagging behind in budding, in fruiting, and in ripeness. Couldn't figure out what the problem was. We searched the soil. We went and added compost. We went and root pruned in the soil. We took chemistry. We went through all of the possible analyses we could do of the soil, of the leaves. Eventually, it dawned on me. It took me 4 years, and I'm a quick learner, so I thought.
Okay.
It dawned on me, the vineyard simply had wet roots in the spring. The ground was shallow and drained to the center, the shape of the vineyard planted to a kind of a V in that middle point was where it was draining to. So the vines were simply wet. And so necessity being that mother of invention, champagne had led the way where they couldn't get ripeness. I thought, perfect, go and harvest the fruit before it's ripe and make a sparkling wine. In the style of champagne, made in exactly the same way. We have to call that Cap Classique. And it's the champenoise, method champenoise. Yes. It's kept on the lees for 18 to 24 months. We don't degorge everything at once. We degorge parcels as we go along. And it's vintaged every year, and it's 100% Chenin Blanc. On the palate, on the nose, it's a green apple. On the palate, it's an absolutely crunchy green apple. This is your Granny Smith green, kind of crunchy, right down to on your teeth. When you bite into an apple, the skin leaves a kind of tannin effect on your teeth. I get that same tannin effect on the wine. That same zippy. Yeah, it's just like a crunchy green apple. It's light, it's refreshing, and I think it's just so brisk. It's the ideal kind of summer sparkler.
Now, which vintage did you begin the sparkling program? Because it takes some time to establish one of those.
Yeah, 2012, and therein was the luck and the unluck, if you like, the good luck and the bad luck, is that we were immediately snapped up by a large supermarket group in the UK who quickly demanded 30,000 bottles a year. And I had to explain to them, no.
You just started this project, yes.
The project is from harvest to when we degorge is essentially nearly 3 years.
Yes, exactly.
Certainly from harvest to being in the market is 3 years. So whatever the vintage on that bottle, you'll see you're at least 3 years behind. You're 2020, I think, on that bottle, or 2019.
2019 on here.
And you're 3 years behind because that's the time it takes. So it's a concept wine, and you kind of can only grow the brand by a 3-year lead time.
Of course. Now, what's the size of the project now? What's the average bottles per year?
What we've done is we've taken the whole vineyard now.
Oh, I see, yes.
What we do is we now still harvest the vineyard in 2 parts, but we harvest the healthiest part of the vineyard, which ripens early first, and we come back and harvest again. We harvest by hand throughout our project anyway. All of my wines, every single drop of wine I make is harvested by hand. It's an amazing point of quality. At that point, yeah, we've all had a lifetime of being told, no, don't pick up that apple. That's a bad apple. Pick a good bunch, you know. So we don't pick the bad bunches. It's absolutely innate in us. And beyond that, we also have the opportunity to select what we want to pick at any one time. So we can go into the vineyard and harvest perhaps just the sunny side, or the western side of the rows, because that gives us much more sunshine, long afternoons versus short, cool mornings. So we can pick afternoons and go back a week later and pick the morning side. So, you know, harvesting by hand also makes a massive difference to our community. That employs an additional 40 to 50 people.
Of course, yes.
You know, in my world, that's 40 or 50 families who are living on the bread line, who are suddenly who can actually afford to be on the bread line. So, you know, that it makes a massive difference in my community.
Superb. Now, this tastes a very, very crisp, dry wine. I'd be curious as to the residual sugar and what your dosage is here, because the wine comes in at 12%, right?
Yeah, we'd be normally between 11.5% and 12%. Dosage, when we get it up on the bench in the lab and we're looking at the dosage trials and we're looking at 0.1 of a gram of sugar variance, I'm always happiest with the natural wine. I love Brut Natural. Right. That's for me. Yep. My winemaking assistant looks at me and says, you feeling good enough? Do you feeling strong enough? You want to drink 23,000 bottles all on your own?
Yeah.
Or do you want to sell some wine?
Do you know what? You have a good point, because I do prefer that you know, that zero, really dry style of sparkling. But the vast majority of people prefer a little bit of sugar on there, right?
Yeah, and so we adapt and adjust. And it's one of the great learnings for me in my entire career in the wine industry is if you're kind of adding sugar at incremental doses of 1 gram per liter, you expect if 4 or 5 or 1,4 is good, you think 1,5 would be better, 1,6 would be slightly sweeter, 1,7, it doesn't work like that.
Oh, I know.
It's absolutely random. When they talk about a sweet spot, believe me, somewhere along that scale of variance, there's a sweet spot that literally hits you between the eyes. And that's where everything comes into balance. And that magical, yes, that's what it's going to be. This wine, the sweet spot on this wine is around about 5.5 grams of sugar. So Brut allows us up to 15 grams, and 5.5 grams, as you point out, is still very much on the dry side.
Now, I do get all of the green apple characteristics coming through on this, but there is a lovely autolytic character going on as well.
For this wine, we're obliged, in terms of the way we harvest, we're harvesting this at an acidity just around 10 grams per liter. That goes through fermentation without too much trouble, but then we have to inoculate a second fermentation for lactic bacteria to get the malolactic fermentation. And that malolactic fermentation drops out some of that acidity and creates that autolysis that gives us that slightly kind of brioche, slightly kind of bready brioche toastiness to the wine, which I think is just such a delicious flavor in the back of sparkling wine. It's the creaminess, it's the richness.
Yeah. I was about to say, it also gives some weight on the mid palate there, which is really quite delightful. After that burst of apple malic strength at the front, just that, that kind of apple crispness, the mid palate is actually quite creamy and quite mouth-filling. It's very satisfying indeed.
Yeah.
Well, in your role as both the vigneron and the ambassador for your own wines, how would you like to see this paired, whether it be before dinner or at the dinner table?
It's my kind of go-to gotta last all day wine. If I'm entertaining, I've got a big event or got guests, it's the kind of wine I go to because I just know it's light, fresh, crunchy, low in alcohol, and it's not going to hurt. I could probably have 5 or 6 or maybe more glasses. It's that kind of wine that, a bottle later, I'm going to feel no pain. It's not going to give me any bad effects. So it's that. But apart from that, the obvious kind of matches go with shellfish, with oysters, and you could go, because of the kind of apple in that, you could even go to a mussel, the kind of mussel, a wonderful hot pot of mussels, because even the richness, this could work with the richness of the mussels. Clams, I dare say, would be delicious with this kind of wine. It's just a great match. At the same time, it also sets off well against cheese. If you're doing some soft cheeses, some riper soft cheeses, this is a great foil for the richness of those cheeses.
Well, you've given me some idea for dinner this evening, Ken. Thank you very much for introducing your Sparklehorse Cap Chenin Blanc Brut 2019. Excellent.
There you go.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it. And that's absolutely wonderful. That name Sparklehorse came about. My wife and I were in London, as I say, 2012, and we were walking from Borough Market, which is under the London Bridge. We were walking up towards London Bridge, up towards the Tate Gallery.
Yes, I know.
They just repaved that entire section and made it pedestrian friendly. And they had a carousel with horses going round and round.
Oh, yes.
And the music and this carousel and the twinkly lights. And I looked at this and I thought, there's Chenin Blanc, the workhorse grape of South Africa. You make a sparkling wine out of the workhorse. It's just a short jump to get to a sparkle horse. And here they are. The sparkle horses are right in front of me. And literally, I took a photograph and I said to my artist, I said, honey, I love what you do. I know you're an artist, but I need you to copy this photo, please. I don't really want you to stylize it. I'd love you to copy it. And she came back, she said, well, at least the horse is going in the opposite direction. I've had some influence. And she turned it around.
Right. Oh, that's
However, it's a matter of perspective, because if you look at the carousel from the outside, the horses will be going from right to left. But if you stand on the inside, they're going from left to right. So it's a matter of perspective. It depends on where you're looking from.
Thank you for sharing the story behind the name, because I was wondering about that. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Ken. We'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, Jamie. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Have a lovely day.